Welcome back, everybody. This is your daily update on the state of Corel Ghislaine, or something. And if you're wondering why I look so fucking destroyed this morning, this is basically yesterday's Raf who managed not to record the video yesterday because he had to listen to glam rock and drink beer instead because we all have to pay for our sins and. So I even put on yesterday's t-shirt to make this basically a time travel video, and I'm regretting it. Luckily you don't have to smell it. I'll go take a shower in a minute. Anyway, until then we're going to talk about the rest of part 2 of Forge of Darkness. So here we go. And yes, this is 10 in the morning. Cheers. So yeah, a lot of stuff happens in those like final 2 chapters of part 2, which is chapter 9 and 10, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. But I feel there's a lot of interesting things going on that we need to talk about. So first of all, here's me predicting shit, which it's not a big deal, but So I really love the fact that there is that civil war thing going on, and it's going on by accident, right? So you have all those troops moving, and then that idiot who is apparently Enda Silam's father, so really cool there, does the thing and kills all those people that are escorting Orphantal, and then Grip, or whatever his name is, goes and kills that one messenger sent by Haran, or whatever his name is. So they don't even know how to stop, so the war will start because shit happens and people are crazy and sometimes dumb mistakes happen. I mean, they happen all the time. So there's that. I'm also like excited that we come to the point where all the Teist suddenly become Teist Leo-san and Teist Andy. So there's that. And so like event-wise, this is like crazy. We also meet Sukul Ankadu, so there's that. Who is just another Teist apparently, and doesn't like her sister. So that doesn't change. But the point is, like, I those last 2 chapters have a bunch of really interesting ideas about how religion happens, how religion doesn't happen, what religion means. The kind of things that I go for. And obviously also how wars happen and how history works and shit like that. So I really love that idea that how to say that the Teist Andy Mother Dark religion is basically calmly constructed from the ground up. Even with before her sanctifying the place and shit like that. It makes the idea of religion as an organization very, very palpable in a way, but like very clear. And on the other hand, we have the Sheikh religion of that river god thing. That is like the other way around, where you worship something that happens every time, and then ritual comes out of it. And ritual is like important, right? Like social rituals are very important. I had like a talk with a friend like years ago about exactly that. It's like we do rituals because they help us. Like even though we don't believe in anything like that. Was about in that case was about the idea of like pouring libations for the dead. Like if you've lived a couple of years, and like especially if you're like in the rock and roll or whatever, hard rock, metal, punk, whatever scene, after a couple of years you lose friends. It's just what happens, right? So you remember people that died for whatever reasons, and the idea of pouring libations, like pouring a bit of your first drink on the evening on the ground for those spirits, even though you don't believe in spirits and shit like that, it still does the trick because it still helps you deal with the loss of all those friends that would be there with you in a way. And that's where ritual comes in, because ritual and the ritualization of religion is not about the God you believe in. It's not about gods. It's all about the people in a way. So yeah, there's that. Well, I love that discussion that the assassin and the warlock have with Triss. Is she the queen of dreams, or am I just dumb? But anyway, anyway, so the point that I'm having here is that idea that it's about humbling, and that it's very much like humbling yourself is very much about yourself and understanding that we as people are insignificant when it comes to the universe being the universe and everything, like being huge, and gods being so much more powerful and everything. It's like the idea that we are like the mystery and the magic of being like insignificant and still being so incredibly powerful compared to like other things that are insignificant to us, compared to us, I feel is an important thing to keep in mind. And while maybe like most of our monotheistic religions are not very good at that, I feel it's sort of the idea is like where gods and religions come in is that idea of us realizing that we are just basically nothing in the face of the universe, and needing to come to terms with that in a way. So yeah, what else? The idea of freedom. Um, the idea of freedom and taking away other people's freedom. When you come to the dog runners, and I still don't understand what the dog runners really are, because I'm not that far in. But we've met Bern, and she's dreaming and sleeping and all of these things. Also, I just love dogs, so there's that. But um, I love that whole part with Sukul and Kadu, and the Castellan being this like seemingly blunt person, because it really goes to show like the arrogance of like nobility. And see, that's something that I really really enjoyed so far about Forge of Darkness. It's like it's medieval fantasy in a way. It's on like has mythological undertones and shit like that. Totally, yeah. Now that conflict is at its heart a class conflict with like Orisander's Legion, which is basically normal people, and them like war being sort of what gave them a leg up into that like stratified society. And this is something that happens a lot, that happened a lot before, right? One of those examples, for example, is Athens, classical Athens in Greece, where like when they went to war, they needed more manpower, so people that are not part of like the upper class of society became rowers in their galleys and triremes and whatnot. And that suddenly gave them power, and they kept that power after the war was done. And that's sort of what we see with Eurysander's Legion there. It's like you are, even though you're a commoner, once that war becomes like that threatening, you get like a certain level of power within society, some kind of leverage, because you are suddenly important. Like society can't function without you. And I mean, normally society can also not function without you when you're just like being a farmer or whatever. But people are easy to forget that. But once you're a soldier and there's like Forkrol Assail or Forkan or whatever you want to call them, knocking at your door with their hinged, double hinged arms and shit, and shit like that, suddenly even those arrogant nobleborn realize that they need all those people. Now that there's peace again. Now that there's peace again, people are like, yeah, fuck that. So obviously I do get that rage of the common people in Urisandra's legion, so they're like veterans, and there's all that trauma that comes from being, veterans, from being in wars and all of that. That's also in there, but that idea of that clear like class unrest that you get sooner or later, you get that in a stratified society, right? That's the point. It's like you have a feudalistic system with like different classes. Like at some point the lower classes will, rise up, because you don't want to be, no one wants to be the lower class. That's not what you want to be. And being powerless and seeing other people having all these privileges and shit makes you angry. That's just what happens. And if you take all those people and train them how to use weapons and shit because you need them in the war, and maybe later on they might just not want to give back those weapons in a way. So that's sort of what I found really interesting about Forge of Darkness, that I didn't realize before I was going into this. Like, yeah, this is medieval fantasy, but it's still very much a debate on class structure in a feudalistic society. So there's that, and that makes me happy that it is there, in a way, if that makes sense. What else? I do still love the fact of how Orphantal is kind of trying to make sense of his world, and is still like viewing everything through the filter of all those stories, of all those like tales his mother told him, and the idea of like our dreams coming into contact with reality and that not always being a good thing, I guess, is interesting. At least interesting. I would say more than that, but um, and it breaks my heart every time I read that. As like Orphantel is such a sweet child. I love him. He's incredible, and you just know that all those illusions are going to get shattered at some point. Um, Another interesting thing I found was that discussion, like the whole part about those two high priestesses, and I've already forgotten their names, so I'm sorry about that. Um, so what I like about this is that part of the whole like Leosan Andy conflict is not Father Light, who will be Urizander, obviously, and Mother Dark being at odds. That's not the point. That entire conflict stems from dumb, squabbling in the hierarchy. Because it is those two high priestesses, basically. And especially the younger one being. But, so that there's like two things there. Like, I like the idea that, like, conflicts are rarely born of, like, if you have conflicts between, like, two idealized people, it's rarely those people. It's usually their followers and hangers on that are squabbling because they are trying to get points and shit like that. Um, I get that. I love that. But on the other hand, I like a problem I see in there, and I'm not sure if that's even possible to avoid that idea. But the problem I see is that from the start, Light and the Tis Leosan are tainted because they come from all the pettiness and weakness of that high priestess. And yeah, I don't know. If you go full on dualism, I like to be both sides on equal footing, and they're not. So that's something that's bothering me. It's like I don't like the Tis Leosan. I don't like them in Malazan Book of the Fallen. I don't like the idea of them, like as in the Malazan Book of the Fallen, them being like fascists. Basically, I don't like that because I don't like fascists. But the point is that I also don't like the fact that right now they seem to be kind of the bad guys from the start, because that priest has like failed or whatever and is petty and whatnot. And I it doesn't make for a good ideological conflict or like good argument if one side is basically tainted and bad from the start up. Is basically what I'm trying to say here. Now, not Yuri Zander. Obviously, he seems to be like a really cool dude, or sort of cool dude for like a warrior and whatnot. But I'm with him. He's cool. I even do understand and get, people like his lieutenant, whose name I don't know, but it's Halrana or whatever. That dude. I even get his idea of like his class struggle. I get that, but like they're all co-opted by that high priestess and pettiness, and I don't know. Doesn't make me happy, basically, because it's. I mean, I do like the idea of dark being cool and light being evil and whatnot. I get that, but it kind of offends me that it's just a petty squabble that makes the whole thing be the whole thing. Anyway, so there's that. Another thing that I really appreciate is how Triss, who may or may not be the Queen of Dreams because I'm an idiot, um, how extremely powerful she is, right? You have that point was like she can do shit that's like I mean the other two Azathanai that we meet are Chris Fallon, whom I love, and Caladan Brood, who so far spend their time either moving around rocks or getting drunk, or both. So there's that, and that's cool. And then you have Triss, and she's just like on an entirely different level. She doesn't, accept any kind of social conventions or anything. She's just like, fuck that. I'm powerful. I can just like breeze through this, and I love that. So there's that. I also love that idea of Anomander being there when and Driss saying like, I'll give you that gift for your defiance. And that idea that Anomander Rake is very much struggling with the ideas of Mother Dark. So I do kind of like that there is that kind of conflict. In general, I do really love the fact that Mother Dark is just a Teist woman who just grabbed all that power and is not like that mythical goddess figure. That's something that, like, I mean, from the Malazan, reading just the Malazan Book of the Fawn, you don't know that. You're just like, oh, she's Mother Dark. She's like the first thing that happened. You're like, apparently not. Apparently that's just all mythology. She's just one Teist woman who just grabbed all that power, so that's cool. I do love that because just like all these like changes in language, those subtle changes in language that you have, like Andasilan remains Andasilan, but you have all these people like the guy who brings back all the Jellican hostages. I mean, he's Scavendari Blood-Eye, right? But he's not Scavendari at this point. He's Scavendar, something, an additional syllable in there. So there's that. And this whole idea that a lot of those characters that we meet here, at least some of them have like additional names or additional syllables in their name, and you can see like how over time like language erodes. So that's something I really appreciate and find really cool. So I like that. But yeah, Civil War is coming because it's a class struggle, and class struggles are unavoidable. That's just true. And in this case, it could have been avoided or like postponed, I guess. But it doesn't because of dumb luck and people are not thinking too much. And I like that. It doesn't make for good storytelling. I mean, it sometimes feels unsatisfying. It's something that you see in the Malazan Book of the Fallen as well, right? You have like these situations where people die, tons of people die because someone doesn't look the right direction at the right time. And yeah, but that's just how life is, right? We fuck up all the time because we're not omniscient narrators of our own like life's journeys or the universe. That's just not who we are. We make mistakes. We're human. We nod off in the wrong moment. We and miss deadlines or whatever. That's just how it works. and seeing that idea here like be so prevalent in all of like Steven Erickson's writing is something that I really appreciate, because it's sometimes uncomfortable and kind of awkward to get to terms with, but yeah, it's still good. It makes it more realistic in a way, which is dumb because we're talking fantasy here, and I have thoughts on that at some point. Anyway, I feel that's sort of where I'm going to leave it for today, and I'll talk to you tomorrow, I hope, about something else. And until then, cheers.